life sewing friends. This week's video is focused on quiet spaces. You know, those elusive spaces between work responsibilities, family responsibilities, teens, spouse, pets even, appointments, events, driving, all that driving time in the car, and a million other things, housework that you could insert there. I used to think sewing or working with fiber arts, knitting, crochet was my sanctuary and my quiet space. It didn't require that I actually have a particular space, but it was the space. But the making wasn't always enough, and sometimes it caused the stress. I would watch tutorial after tutorial, and fun though it was, it never fully brought what I needed, I don't think. Peace and something intentional to direct my mind towards. Yes, the practice was fun and enjoyable and did demand my focus, but maybe it was because I had achieved enough skill that I didn't have to focus all the time on the task. I was ready for the next level. What I needed, I felt, was a supportive guide on the side, nourishing my mind and bringing new value to the time I had to make and reflect. Free my soul with prompts or ideas that would move me forward toward the rich life God had planned for me. So this week's process invites you to think about quiet spaces, what you do there, is what you do there working, how do you prioritize time in these spaces for you? So as I'm stitching this week, I selected a little sample page from my book. This is a completely separate task and a different sort of project that I'm working on, where I create little samples and pen them into my book, and I don't know, just work out some different stitches and things. Just a way to play and be creative and to be a little bit spontaneous without feeling like I have to make something that actually turns into something. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to turn these into or not, but right now I'm pinning some fabric onto a couple of scraps that I ordered. I just love kind of some vintage linen feeling type of fabric. I love the gingham in the back. And then the one on the bottom is actually a little sample of silk. And I think I might use it to pull threads and try that. But right now I'm just going to do one of my favorite stitches, and that is the blanket stitch. So I'm just getting started, and inadvertently I always end up tangling. I probably make my thread way too long, but I just hate to rethread my needle all the time. Anyway, that's beside the point. This week is about quiet spaces. I have one right here, right now, where I'm able to work on this. It's sunny. My family is occupied. I'm sitting on my back porch, and my dog is close by, and just pondering some of the things that came out of my sketches, recognizing that I'm in a space, and I feel very blessed that I actually have some space in the mornings, and a lot of my drawings related to that. Not so much the evening or during the day, that's full of work. that's full of family obligations and sometimes work obligations, dog walking, and all sorts of things. I don't often have a lot of time to myself. And so the mornings, I guess, are my space. And what I'm thinking about is boundaries here. It just kind of connects to this blanket stitch and going around. I feel pretty protective of that space, but yet flexible. If my husband has something to go do, then I can take our girls in the morning, and it's not an imposition. I think because it's not something I have to do all the time, of course I don't really mind. But I'm also finding that the little bit of space that I have, I try to overschedule it, like do yoga and exercise, try to squeeze in podcasts and things that are just of personal interest to me. And speaking of that, I was looking up some podcasts that connect to quiet, and actually I came across Emily P. Freeman. She's in Substack, and if you're not familiar with Substack, it's changing, I guess. I've just become aware of it, but I think it's a really positive and a kind place, and it's a place where I think a lot of writers go and explore writing. But she has a podcast, and it's more faith-based, and I think a lot of this channel is going to start, some of my faith is going to be coming out and shared in a way that I haven't really, and I wouldn't say not feel comfortable. I guess that's a connection to a boundary. There have been times when it's not that I have been shy of my faith or really uncertain. I just don't really know how to talk about it with other people. And I find I want to have that be part of my morning routine also. Think about a Bible verse. I try to have a Bible verse written down in my bullet journal at least monthly to reflect upon, or some highlighted excerpts of scripture in my Bible from church on Sunday, but that just hasn't quite made it into my daily routine, so that I might need to insert somewhere in my weekly spaces that I have. But I am including some references there on my Instagram account that connect to quiet spaces for her podcast. And really just thinking about, yes, to ourselves, but when we have space in the quiet, and we don't even have to really be doing things like I'm sitting here in the quiet and I'm working on this, but just allowing space for God to share insights and wisdom, just listen. Give us time to listen in. I was also thinking about a book study that I'm doing at my university. It's a faculty book study on the pedagogy of kindness, and it's really focused on how we can express and show kindness to ourselves and our students in academia in general. And the very first chapter started with being kind to ourselves. And so the group, we really enjoyed getting started and thinking about ways that we can take care of ourselves. And part of that is being kind to ourselves when we might make mistakes in our teaching or feel like we just didn't hit the mark with the class. And that's with every profession. You go into things and sometimes we focus so much on what we could have done better. We don't always treat ourselves or talk to ourselves kind about mistakes that we make. And so as this book study has evolved, we're really unpacking the difference between being nice and being kind. I won't go into the higher ed piece, but I've been thinking about that and what it might mean for us as individuals. I don't know about you, but there's been often times when I feel like I'm just maybe nice to myself in a surface way. You know, like, this was a hard day. Have a piece of chocolate. I'm really weaning myself away from food as a reward, because it shouldn't be. And, thinking to myself, oh, it's okay. You didn't get to do insert anything. That's okay. Maybe another time. Don't worry. You know, you just had to do this other thing. So just kind of some surface niceties, even to ourselves. But kindness is deeper. It's helping us recognize and, I guess, exhibit value in ourselves before we wait for others. So coaching ourselves, having an intentional practice, wisdom beyond just the moment. So maybe internal voices of like, that didn't feel great in class today. And so what did you learn? And thinking about what we learned and just setting some intentions for the next time. To me, that is a way that I share kindness with myself beyond just being nice. Oh, phew, that's over with. Let's move on and not give that another thought. Because the kindness is more of an intention of supportive friend, a guide on the side, if you will. So I'd like to think about that a little bit more. Maybe that'll come out in my journal a little bit, and the difference between nice and kind. All right, all that setup of sketching and stitching, and now it's time for journaling. Find a nice spot where you won't be interrupted. Try to carve out 10 minutes or so. 15 would be better, but we all have busy lives. You can write the prompts that you really want to focus on. If there's just a few at the top of your page, I've found that's something I'm going to continue because it allows me to kind of look up in case I kind of am running out of ideas or want to make sure I reach that particular prompt. Make sure and try or resist the urge to focus on mechanics or word choice. Scratch out words if you need to. The idea here is really just to spend some time to allow your ideas to flow and present themselves. So I'll read some of my journal and then we'll unpack it a little bit as an example for what might come up for you. So, with quiet spaces, I selected where do you find moments of quiet in your day? What does sanctuary mean to you at this stage of life? And at the end, I did focus on boundaries I could create to or have to create more stillness. It has taken me years to be brave enough to work to show value in myself and truly carve out little moments of peace. Initially, I think I found ways to just embed them in the tasks and spaces I already needed to do, listening to a podcast while folding laundry, for example. Then I found sneaky ways, like buying a Kindle so I could read after bedtime with the lights off so the little ones wouldn't get back up, the backlit ones. Now I have found my quiet space is an actual sanctuary for me, a space all my own. It's actually sad now because I've done the work of healing and creating time for me so I don't feel bitter or even rushed in the space. The sad part is that my children are older and don't interrupt. Yep, that's sad, believe it or not. They end up off in their own rooms doing homework or other things. Even my youngest daughter doesn't need to come into the sewing room because she has most all the things that she needs in her own room. So I have plenty of time to plan, make, and think in a space. And then I go on to say, um, sanctuary to me means thinking space without fear, where I can engage in creative exploration of materials, of ideas, of practices for a long length of time. At this stage of life, I want the length of time to be focused time. Even uninterrupted, my thoughts flit around like a butterfly, having a hard time finding just the right flower to land on. It's hard to just focus, even if I have the time. It's an internal problem more than an external one. My boundaries needed, um, the boundaries I need seem less about finding the time, space, right location, just right chair, workspace, setup, or materials. I need to set boundaries on my focus time. And I think it means a sort of schedule. So I talk about the schedule, but the hard part about scheduling time is that my brain thinks that it has to be in the mood for creativity. It has to be ready, or a spark has to be there. And so I say that I have lots of projects, and sometimes I don't know where to start. I just need to decide on one and go. Not as easy as it sounds. Actually, it can be overwhelming and stilting, decision fatigue. The brain processes behind that term, decision fatigue, make sense. Too much to hold before making the right connection. And how do you know what the right choice is? The prompt about boundaries then might be about selected choices. Telling myself, you have 1 hour and all these ideas. Choose three. Think of the best option and then focus only on that one. Here is the biggest challenge for me: focus without multitasking. I'm so bad about this now. I listen to a book, watch a show on my phone or other while I stitch, draw, paint. Not really painting, it takes too much focus for me. Yes, my boundaries are internal, needing creating and unleashing, because creativity is always there. If I'm waiting for it to be free, I'm missing out on its energy and positive forces.
So, after you've read both in your head, maybe, and out loud, or just in your head, go line by line. I like to use a pen, sometimes just my finger, and then have a pen close by, and just circle as many words as you want. There's no wrong way. You don't have to curate a particular number at this point. You're just thinking about what might feel significant. Words that you keep repeating, words that you really are centering on that connect to the prompt for you. There's really no wrong way to do this process. Choose 3 to 5 words that feel most significant, and then write a little reflection about what those words mean to you. If you have time, set some intentions for what to do with that this week.
So I hope this first guided journal video was helpful to you to see how the process actually works all the way through to the analysis piece, and that it inspires you to consider maybe looking at the resources that I've shared, read or listen to some of them while you're stitching. Or if your challenge is multitasking, maybe just make yourself sit in peace and quiet and do some stitching and see what comes up in your mind before you sit down to write your own journal. But I look forward to having you comment and share some of the words that came up for you, and maybe what your intentions are after you've learned some things about yourself in this second journal. And then the next time we'll come together, we'll talk about thread connections, our past and our present connecting. Look forward to seeing you then. Thanks.